crying, so I'm a full boomer. But we are proud to recognize the one and amazing Chris O'Neill for this award. Rehearsing to be a badger at the moment, so she is not here. I've known Chris for over a decade now. She's been an integral part of the arts and theatre community in Nova Scotia for over 30 years. She wears many hats, literally and figuratively. She's the founder of Two Planks and a Passion in Ross Creek, which are both located in Mi'kma'ki. Beautiful area. If you ever go to Nova Scotia, you have to go to their company and see what they do. It's truly, truly incredible. They've been running for over 30 years. She's the executive director of Ross Creek. She's the co-chair of Theatre Nova Scotia. And she's an actor, an advocacy leader, a teacher, a mother, and an artist. She's so kind, so gracious, and she's just like, she creates magic on stage, off stage, within governance, everything. I myself and a few other members of the Nova Scotia community nominated her for this award because we knew she had to be recognized for some of her work. To start off with, right at the beginning of the COVID crisis, you know, we both run theater programs and we were allowed to run programs. Like in Nova Scotia, we've been running camps since 2020. And so all of a sudden we had this task of figuring out what the heck COVID policy and running safe camps during a pandemic was. Chris and I and other people met like every week, talked to the chief medical officer, developed policies, shared knowledge, and all of that work actually went on through all of your organizations because we were some of the people who became leaders in this work to get us through these years. So that's one thing that she did.
Whether it was policy, communication, health and safety, and most importantly, artistic integrity in theater arts education, Chris was always the first person to reach out with ideas, resources, strategies for community engagement, and other tools that have paved the way for our reopenings. In every meeting with cultural and government leaders, Chris is always the first and always the last person to ask important questions and demand answers that all organizations are asking for. As a chair of Theatre Nova Scotia, she led the way in an advocacy campaign demanding that the provincial government increase operational funding for arts organizations, something that had not happened in over a decade. This led to doubling the current budget, which will help to change the course for theater arts in Nova Scotia for all kinds of theater companies and artists in Nova Scotia. The increase in provincial investment will help small arts organizations receive operational support for the first time. Chris is a fierce, passionate, tireless advocate leading the way for future artists and arts companies in Nova Scotia. This award speaks to Chris's innate character to want to help, her willingness to make positive change, and her commitment to carry an incredible amount of work that comes with making change, for which we are so grateful.
And in case you missed that, we were getting threatened cuts, 15% cuts, 20% cuts, and instead we got double funding because of Chris's work. That's what Chris was doing. Stand here if you want to sit. I am now being Chris O'Neill and giving a speech. So she wrote me today because she was working, she was supposed to send a video, and she wrote and said, "I'm really more of a writer, will you do this?" So imagine that I am this probably about, I don't know, I think she's about 5 feet, glasses, hair in a ponytail, big open, beautiful eyes, open heart, and here she is. I will do my best. Thank you so much for your nomination and this award. It means a lot, way out here in Mi'kma'ki, where we live under the treaties of peace and friendship. I will end there. If I were in person with you all, then I would do a little turn, as if to leave, and then do an intake of breath, which I have learned in my 52nd year means that a thought has come across my brain, and I can't wait to express it, no matter what else is happening. And I would turn back and say, oh, just one more thing. For those who know me, you will have known that you wouldn't get away that easy. First, seriously honored. I got to meet Mallory Gilbert a few times through Pact, and she was formidable and so smart, with a laser look that seemed to cut through pretension and bullshit. But in all my interactions, she was also kind and welcoming. I am also thrilled to be in the company of people who have and continue to make a difference in Canadian theatre, and therefore all of us. Second, I miss you. I learned so much through Pact when we were starting Two Planks in the Passion Theatre over 30 years ago. And the people who make this organization, both as staff and as colleagues, are extraordinary, in what you all do. I will also really miss Boomer and have loved the warmth and caring he brought to Pact, embracing us all through these hard few years. I wish we were able to be there, her and Ken. And we would love to come back in early May. Finally, I want to reflect for just a moment on what I think is vital about us and moving forward. I know that you all know this, but I don't get a chance to speak to a whole room of colleagues very often, so I want to take this moment now and reflect on a few things that I'm thinking about and what I imagine are some shared experiences. The COVID pandemic, the killing of George Floyd, the terrible discoveries at the residential schools, and the climate crisis have made some things much clearer for me. Things that we knew and were slowly chipping away at in our work, but hadn't sometimes pushed to the forefront. Needing to examine the fundamental disconnect between how we were trying to make work and programming and, for example, how the board would function, and how we needed to restructure our rehearsals, restructure our staffing, our organizational charts so that it reflected the culture we were trying to create instead of replicating corporate ideas of hierarchy. We have been able to finally, through outside influences, delve into deeper existential conversations about how we operate and are in a world as an organization. Along with all of you, I have been thinking a lot about privilege and responsibility and governance and change. Mostly I bang on about community, how we create new community every time a new staff member or a new production comes into the hall or our workshops come together. But beyond that, this moment has made it so clear how important it is that we all outline how we are part of a wider community. At our organization, as in Ross Creek and Two Planks, during COVID, we made new collaborations with the public library system to reach out to people who are already living in isolation and created an interdisciplinary art show with them. Within 2 weeks of the lockdown, we had created our first ever digital programming and executed over 30 programs that were not just observed content, but interactive and live with participants. From 4 years old to 80, making art together and finding comfort and solace in each other. We ran isolation residencies for artists trying to get home who had 14 days to quarantine and nowhere to do it. They stayed in our cabins and had a studio and meals provided so that they could be supported and walk the grounds and make work if they wanted safely. And we started feeding our local communities, from the local transition house to families where the sole access to food they had was at schools and was cut off during lockdowns. To others, and we gleaned from local farms and worked with food banks to make healthy meals that reduce food waste and increase food access in extremely difficult times. We used our kitchens over the past 3 years to make and distribute over 8,500 meals, and we will be continuing that program in our new facility, which was wholly donated to our specifications to house a community radio, community kitchens and gardens, recording studio, and performance space. I know I am honored to be speaking to you because I know that so many organizations here stepped up in similar ways to support your communities. The reason that I mention all of this is because it brought into razor-sharp focus things that I had only mumbled about before, in which I had to explain to our board members. Yes, our mission is to give voice to arts and culture, but we have to do that as citizens in our neighborhood. In a context of equity and at all levels, of climate action as we can, in our case, we have focused on food security and reduction of food waste as our primary focus, and governance change so that our board is connected to and preaches the essentiality of a kind of governance where meaning is forefronted instead of finances. I'm going to say that one again because I think that's important. Where it preaches the essentiality of a kind of governance where meaning is forefronted instead of financials. Where the way we work is as important as the work itself. We need to be the heart of our communities so that no one can imagine life without us. To take this opportunity as we can spread the change making happening inside our rehearsal halls and spread that out and welcome more people in. We need to be clear that no matter what our missions, we have to be good neighbors, which means EDI, which means climate action, which means economic access. And in a moment where women's reproductive rights are under fire around the world, where New Brunswick just diminished the rights of trans and non-binary youth yesterday, where our world is on fire, it has never been more important. We are already leaders in our work and need to ensure that we are voices in all the conversations. And which means, all means advocacy, both so that we can do our work, but so we can do this work. We made change in Nova Scotia by being good neighbors with our communities and colleagues, not just in other theaters, but in dance and visual arts and in music. We need to reestablish those connections nationally and take our place not just as cultural leaders, but as community leaders, with a passionate, strong, and disciplined voice to ensure that our knowledge and work for our individual organizations, our individual geographic and cultural communities is repeated across the country, that we learn from each other and we make the change we all care so deeply about. She did put this next point in bold. It can't be back to business after COVID. It's a chance to remake the world. I look forward to doing it with you. I'm so thrilled to have worked through this period with two individuals that I'm delighted to name as our protégés, although I learn as much from them as they might learn from me. Logan Robbins is the artistic director of the Unnatural Disaster Theatre Company, working to make entertaining artistic productions in unusual spaces that focus on the climate crisis. He is an astoundingly multi-talented and optimistic young cultural leader, and I look forward to seeing how he continues to push us all to center change in our work. There's Logan there. Is the administrator of Theatre Nova Scotia, the umbrella organization in Nova Scotia, which Chris has, been co-chaired through the pandemic. Marcus is a theatre maker both in his home of Hong Kong and in his adopted home of Nova Scotia, and is a stellar administrator who cares for us so deeply in the Nova Scotia community and has navigated through leadership change at Theatre Nova Scotia and been our rock throughout these past 3 years. He is exactly what the next generation leader He is exactly the next generation leader we all need. Chris's final 2 sentences are, once again, thank you so much for this honor in your work. We are truly all in this together with so much love. Chris O'Neill.